All right, let's get reaction to all this now from our panel. John Spencer is the executive director and co-founder of the Urban Warfare Institute, and Shadi Hamid is a columnist at the Washington Post and author of the upcoming book, The Case for American Power. Great to have both of you here. John, there's a brutal calculus at work here. Itai is one of two Americans still being held hostage by Hamas. Is it really plausible they don't know where Itai and Omer Nutra are, given that they're Americans as well as Israelis? And Hamas must know what they're risking with the American government.
I mean, who is Hamas is a good question, and who's left to know where that information is. I mean, I talk in likely or unlikely. It's likely they know at least the location and where the person was being held. And there's a plan for this too with the searching groups, but clearly they're not living up to the letter of the first phase on giving the bodies. I think it's a total of 8 of the 28 so far. And President Trump clearly is growing impatient with even the intent of the first phase of the operation, let alone what's happening in Gaza right now.
Shadi, the former national security advisor under President Biden, just warned that Hamas may be using these hostage bodies as leverage. Do you think that could be happening?
I don't think there's a lot of evidence for that yet. We'll have to wait and see. I think that it was always understood during the negotiations for this ceasefire that it would be challenging for Hamas to locate and transport some of the remains. Gaza is mostly in rubble right now. It's not the easiest thing, and John makes, I think, a relevant point here. Hamas's senior leadership on the ground in Gaza has largely been decimated. So when we're talking about Hamas doing X, Y, or Z, that's not going to be a very straightforward thing. So I think we need to have a little bit more patience. And I think it's kind of concerning that Israel seems to be using this already as a reason to potentially cut off aid to Palestinians who are in dire need. Why should innocent Palestinians pay the price for Hamas not returning a certain number of bodies at a specific time? That seems like collective punishment to me, and that's very concerning, I think, and we have to keep an eye on that.
John, there are reports of Hamas conducting mass executions across the Gaza Strip, killing anyone they think is disloyal or who worked with the Israelis. There was a video that was circulating last night that showed what appeared to be Hamas members, heavily armed, forcing at least 7 men to their knees in the street and then gunning them down.
Yeah, I mean, clear evidence of Hamas bandanas in multiple locations. I've actually seen videos in the center of Gaza City and other locations, reprisal executions, showing their true colors. More alarming for me is not just that, which is these rivalries. They still think they're going to be left in power. They still think they're going to keep their actual arms to do this kind of thing. And that's been clear. Part of phase 2 is clear disarmament, which again, the president has made very clear that, you know, hostages first, disarmament, demilitarization. But of course, again, going back to who is Hamas, who are these actors, and what it will take if they don't just voluntarily give up these arms and this power, which is, these are definitely indicators of the problems that will be faced very shortly.
Shahid, a lot of people have spent the last 2 years blaming Gazans for not overthrowing Hamas. Doesn't the fact that Hamas is now out there executing people that they think were disloyal show why that's nearly impossible?
Yeah, I think it was always unrealistic to think that Gazans would rise up and focus on Hamas. Gazans' primary source of anger is Israel. I mean, Israel has been responsible for the punishing bombardment of Gaza. And most Gazans have had most of their families wiped out, and they blame Israel for that. Hamas is a secondary concern. I think now...
But why don't they blame Hamas? Hamas started the whole thing.
Yeah, but I mean, Israel has agency. Israeli bombs are the ones that actually killed their family members. So it would be kind of, I think, a little bit odd for them to focus primarily on Hamas when they can see that Israel is the one that is causing the destruction. But I think now that the dust is settling, they can now focus more of their attention on Hamas and say, well, okay, let's pick up the pieces. Why did Hamas kind of, bring us into this situation in the first place? That is something we'll probably be hearing more and more of going forward. But I think it's unrealistic to expect Gazans to just kind of leave Israel blameless in all of this. Israel does have agency. Israel made choices that made the lives of so many Palestinians miserable in Gaza. We just have to accept that.
Right. Well, Hamas also launched the attack on October 7th and then went and hid underneath all those civilians and used them as human shields for the retaliation they knew would come from Israel. John, you were just in Gaza City last week working with the IDF to find and destroy the tunnels that Hamas has been hiding in for years. And despite the near total devastation above ground in Gaza, nearly 2/3 of these tunnels still exist to this day. Why are they so hard to destroy?
It's just the scale and the difficulty of destroying one. If you use explosive, which is one of the many methods, they can use liquid concrete and others, but just the scale of it. And even the estimates that we've heard about in the public aren't the true discovery of the layers of tunnels, especially every piece of ground, every building having this underneath it, and what it would take, let alone the explosive dangers that are in Gaza at this moment. So same thing we've seen before, forcing civilians back onto the rubble, very dangerous. But in order to rebuild anywhere in a single patch of land, you have to deal with this underground militarized. That's why that demilitarization that will be an international effort is so key. What it will take to, I mean, the IDF have been working for 2 years to map it. It's nobody understands the scale of this problem. It's massive.
Shahid, super quick, we've got hundreds of thousands of Palestinians walking back to what remains of their homes, but I can't emphasize enough, more than 80% of Gaza is literally leveled. These people have, I don't know how they're going to live in this situation.
Exactly. And that's why I think the celebrations have been a little bit more muted on the Palestinian side, because they're returning to homes that no longer exist. They're going to discover
setting in.
Yeah, they're going to discover that their neighborhoods are largely in rubble. How are they going to build lives? How are they going to rebuild the areas that they live in? I mean, that's going to take a very long time. So I think for Palestinians, this is really a mixed bag. Obviously, there's a relief that the killing will stop and Israel will withdraw from parts of Gaza, but is that enough really for them?
All right, John Spencer, Shahid Hamid, thank you so much. Really appreciate both of your expert analyses tonight.